4coder dev. No such file. So it's possible to not have your fstab file. Okay. So just to get everyone caught up with what I'm doing, today and for the rest of this weekend and possibly following days, I am working entirely on getting one more build out for the end of 2018. And the goal of this build is to be very, very stable. Basically, if we assume that the next build is going to take 3 months, 4 months maybe, I don't want a bunch of bugs sitting around for, it's already been 2 or 3 months since the last build came out, and there are some bugs in there that need to get fixed, and some, obvious sort of like just basic default stuff like the command bindings. I could stand a few more built-in commands. Well, we'll get into that maybe later. But point is, I just want to get all that polish done over these next few days and get this thing out. So we're going to start going after some very particular problems to see if we can fix them. And the particular problem we're going to go after first is if I have a folder that is synced between a virtual machine and a host operating system of Windows, a Windows host operating system, I want to be able to see what happens if 4coder on the host operating system has code files open in that folder, and then they, how do they interact well? Hold on a minute, I want to check with the stream people, make sure everything is working alright, because I'm seeing a lot of high network traffic here, or CPU here, and I'm set over here, maybe dropped a couple frames. Okay, I'm not sure what we're causing the drops. Let me just try a couple things here. Okay, we don't need this open. We don't need this open. Alright, okay, let me, yeah, I stream in low FPS because this isn't exactly an action game. That's on purpose. Hopefully the video, like the image quality is reasonable, though, right? Is like text readable and stuff? Let's see. Yeah, okay. So, anyway, just double check again. The text is readable enough, right? If we have a problem there, I can do some work to zoom in on what I'm working on at any given time. But if this is readable, then we'll move on. But so point is, what we're going to test is I've just set up this VM. Well, I've been setting it up for a while, but it started last night and then worked on it some more today. As these things go, maybe some people are really fast, but I can't get it done that quickly. So right now what I'm trying to do is mount a shared folder, have it auto mount whenever this virtual machine is running, and I'm trying to figure out how to do that. I've done it before, but I never remember what it's like to do that. So I think it's something like I want to what is the shared folder name? VBox test. Mount point. Okay, Then I want to drop all of that into, I probably have to sudo that. Drop all of that into echo fstab. Okay, well make the file then. Isn't that how that works? If it's not there, you make it. Okay. Can you do something like how do you make an empty file? I thought you could just echo something into a non-existent file and get a file. How do I append to the file? Do I need to do like the double pipe? Is that the difference here? No. How does one append? I know what append means. I'm saying I don't know what the append like here, look, just look at the things I've tried. So I tried we could just pipe nothing into here. Permission denied. Okay. Well, that's a little closer. Permission still denied. What? But I said I wanted to super do that. Is there something about the world I don't understand? Impossible. Okay, so the double does append and the single writes to it. I don't have an fstab file at all, so I can't really write to it or append it until I can figure out how to make it. Right? Wait, no, I do have one. Okay. Okay, so I do have one, and I want to echo into that vbox test vbox sf rw uid equals 1000 netdev into and then permission is denied and permission is denied. Okay, so I can't actually do this no matter what I do because I guess I just don't have permission, but I don't get that. How am I supposed to get permission? I mean, I don't know. I should be a pseudo user. I'm the only user on the machine. I used sudo earlier, like sudo. I don't know how I'm supposed to pronounce that. I mean, obviously you don't need to be super user to do that, but I don't get what I could have possibly done to make myself not a super user. This is how I always install Ubuntu. Alright. What does that do? Did that do it? Is that what I was supposed to do? Tiberion. What am I doing here? What was that supposed to do? I guess it did change the file. I see. Okay. Now we're going to want to put this back in. Okay, I think that's good. As far as I'm able to tell by manual inspection. Okay, now, what I'm supposed to do is echo VBox test into, well, I'm not done typing out yet, in there, and then it's VBox SF, I believe. Yep. RW UID 1000 netdev, and then we're going to pipe that result into this command right here. But T is going to replace it. How do I append that? How do I append? How do I do T with an append operation? Minus A after the T. Okay. Append. I don't know, does that work? Does that look right? I can't really tell by visual inspection. I mean, I didn't line these things up, but I also haven't bothered to make my monitor bigger. There we go. And I also guess I don't know if blank lines make any difference. Okay, so I think that's everything I have to do. Hold on. Okay, one more time, we want to just throw this into there. Alright, so no, I did it the way I wanted to. Daughter. Um, this is not a command here, this is, just a, like, mounting point. Alright, let's see. There's a couple questions here. Okay, so one thing I should put on my to-do list for this weekend is looking at this starting 4coder from the start menu thing, where apparently this is something people are hitting a lot. You know, there's a lot of bugs that, there are kind of like three classes of bugs. There are bugs that only I know about, then there are bugs that only Jim knows about, and that I don't know about, and then there are bugs that everyone knows about, and it looks like this has become a this bug has just been promoted all the way through to the category 3, this start menu problem. Okay, so now I probably still have to power this virtual machine off and restart it to get that to work. Well, you see, the way the second class of bug comes about is Jim discovers a bug, and he discovers it before anyone else has ever reported it. And so far as I know, Jim's the only one who knows about it. He then reports it to me, and I promptly dump the memory of the bug because I look at it and go, that is way too ridiculous. I don't know how he's finding that, nor do I have the bandwidth to be fixing it right now. And then I just wait around and see if it ever comes up for another reason, at which point I go, oh no, Jim knew about this all along, and if I had just been listening to him, it would have been fixed already. But of course, if I actually went through and fixed all the bugs that I think Jim has proposed that I should take a look at, I would never be able to get anything else done, because I don't know how he does it, but he finds all of them. Especially anything that I could construe as not being my own fault, like Windows nonsense. Hey, why am I not getting the mouse this time? There we go. Okay, so the full screen start didn't work. Weird. Nanometer. So the point of powering down the VM was I put some a new line into my fstab file, which basically automatically does the mounting that I need to turn a folder to like mount a shared folder onto my like file system. So with that in the fstab file, I need to relaunch because it's not like adding it to the fstab automatically causes Ubuntu to like update. I still have to reboot Ubuntu so that when it reads the fstab file on boot, it mounts the thing correctly. Otherwise, I could mount it myself, but that's a different command. But the idea is, hopefully, if I've done it correctly, there was supposed to be a VBox temp folder there. Maybe I didn't understand how power down works. Okay. Let me try that again then. I see. Yep. I don't know. Now if I hit that one, it doesn't actually seem like it's doing anything. Is it shutting down? Is it supposed to take time to shut down? Oof. I will try to cap my fstab as soon as it comes back. So, in the meantime, have you ever played the game The Ghost Stack? Because the sentence I just said sounded a lot like a sentence from The Ghost Stack. Okay, am I not supposed to see this every time I boot up an Ubuntu instance? Because this is always what I see, is the little black screen and text. That's what I'm used to seeing whenever any Linux starts. I don't know. Alright, we're going to start by checking to see if the fstab file still has our changes that actually like worked correctly, and we will let Dave get a look at them if our changes are in fact still there. Whoops, this screen doesn't work if it's full screen, so we gotta just there we go. Uh-oh. Doop. There we go, nice and small. Now it can work. Maybe I don't have enough video memory on it initially or something. I don't know. That's weird. hope everyone who came was ready to get in the weeds with me today, because that's what we're doing. Okay. A part of the reason this sucks is because it's all on a VM2, which means it's a little bit slower than the rest. Like, it's slower than it should be. I could like speed the VM up, give it more CPU and RAM, but I'm not supposed to be spending tons of time in this VM. It should have. I wanted it to just be like an install and get going, but then there's actually like install it, run updates and upgrades, shut down, restart, install guest editions, VirtualBox guest editions, restart, and then there's update the make the shared folder and update fstab, restart, and then there's an extra restart for every time you screw it up along the way. Ubuntu might just be a bad distro, but I've never successfully installed any other distro in a VirtualBox or on a hardware except for on my Raspberry Pi, where I installed the specially crafted Raspberry Pi version of Debian successfully. Alright, okay, so I can't actually do that. Now what I need to do is I need to delete that line out of my fstab. What do I do? Um, how do I delete the line? I can't edit the file directly. Wait, yes I can if I... That's what we learned before, right? So I can do this. I can do... The only reason it wasn't letting me sudo this earlier was some kind of weird limitation of the scope of what sudo applies to. Alright, so this means nothing, so I have to type the full thing. Okay, what's the full thing? I can't remember. It's like users... I can't remember. No. There it is. Okay. Alright, even more random stuff showing up right here. What are you? You're the mounted version of VBox test, right? Cool. Okay, so now I finally have that working. Now what I want to be able to do is I'm going to put some random code files. It's got to be something I can build. So how about I put a copy of meow hash into that folder there. And there it is. Okay, so that's pretty cool. We've got it synced now, so the virtual machine and the actual machine are sharing that folder essentially. So, I suppose now the trick is build it from Linux but edit it from Windows, right? That's what we want to see if we can pull off. So let's get the build it from Linux part going. Jim, I will update for you what we are working on. There's been a couple of different file change notification problems on Windows, and this is the only one I haven't tried to repro yet, so I'm just giving it a shot to see if I can get a repro case for this particular problem, which is that files in a shared folder, which aren't being edited from either the VM or the host operating system, are still getting change notifications randomly and basically constantly when those files are open in 4coder, and we're going to find out why. Okay, so we want to be able to build from Linux. So I don't think clean version matters for meow hash, so go ahead. Okay, this is ready. So, can we build meow hash now? Meow hash is a bit of a slow build when you have just the one core. Okay, so there's no output? That's weird. Let's go check. I was expecting to see it do little incremental outputs. Does this have Clang CL? How does it have... Did I already have those included? Probably did. Okay, here's what we're gonna do. Okay, so I got rid of the build folders, and we're gonna run the build shell script again. Okay. Okay, so those are getting built. Now what we want to run is meow example. Whoops, sorry, that's not a dot, that's a build. Okay. Cool. Yes, meow hash is the high-speed hash that Casey is working on slash worked on slash posted. I don't know what exactly the status is. I just happen to have a copy because I was using it to try to repro a 4coder bug that he was having while working with it. And since I happen to have a copy of it there, and it's sort of a nice small amount of code, but with some actual operations that involve file I/O for reals, it seemed like a good test case for this situation. Okay. So we can now build and run from the Linux virtual machine. So now the goal is to so what we want to do is we want to look at I guess we're going to set the 4coder thing up over here. Alright, so here's a debugger instance for the most recent build of 4coder. Okay, so now I should be able to pick up, go over here to, oops, I want to go to my VBox test, meow hash master, and then build hit this. Okay, open all code recursive. Please also get the build scripts. Okay. Okay, so alright, so now the point is we want to be able to see if this setup will generate file changes. So one thing I can do is I could just go ahead and make a change directly in one of these. I don't know what that means. Attempting to read the recently used resources file at home lnw.recently used but the parser failed to open file .local.share recently used permission denied. Yeah, seems like it, doesn't it? Why is my scrolling suddenly borked? What's the deal? Down, up. There you go. Okay. Still won't actually let me save the file. Okay. Alright, so even though it didn't generate this error here, text file busy. Oh man. It's supposed to be mounted as writable. I don't know if how do I change my, like, where is that? There's a couple different places that you might be referring to there, Dave. So one of them is over here. This you can see it's access full. I don't know what other kinds of access there are. I guess read-only or not, but it's not checked read-only. And so it's not a read-only file. Now the only other thing that could be relevant is the fstab. And I don't know how to interpret that to tell you whether or not it's got write permissions. So the thing that's supposed to happen, the thing that was supposed to happen when I did this, like the way this bug occurs for the user who's struggling with it, is that when they have this set up, they get file change notifications in Windows without any actual changes happening on either operating system to the file, right? In other words, just sporadic file change notifications. Now maybe I just need to boot into the VM while I have the full files open to get those changes. I'm not sure. But I was hoping to recreate that, and none of this appears to be doing that. I can try and touch test file. So test file worked just fine. So the only problem is shutting down is an expensive operation. If I decide that that's the thing I'm going to do to try, if I decide that's the next thing I'm going to try, that there's no real going back on it. It's weird. So let me try a few things. Suppose I close 4coder down. Can I then edit meow hash .h? Even with 4coder not open, it says error renaming temporary file text file busy. Excuse me. Okay, so I have another idea. It could totally be gedit that's causing the problem and not anything else. Losing my train of thought here. What do I even want to try next? Like, so nothing I'm doing is causing any change notifications to come through over here. in terms of like just normal operations on either side. I was able to edit this side. I was able to launch, reboot this thing here. Um, okay, now let's try building. Oops, that's not the build script. It could be that there's something else on the VM editing the file, except I don't know what that would be. Like I haven't installed anything unusual. This is just basic Ubuntu, so it has to be something that Ubuntu plus Clang could be achieving without any further dependencies. Not sure what that would be. So building didn't cause a problem. Okay. How do I save a change? Okay, so that actually did post a file change, and I'm still not reproing any problems. So I think this one's a bust. Did I have get it open twice? Was that the problem before? Let's take a look. Okay, weird. We just did something really wacky. So whatever we just did still wouldn't let us save the file. Valbus, when will I post an update to fix the panel resize with the mouse problem? In a couple days. The next update will have that fixed. It's already fixed in the bleeding edge version. It could also very well be that this is, as I might have glossed over, I've completely rewritten the file tracking for Windows already for a different problem. And so it could be that the old one did have this problem and that this one doesn't have the problem. So I should also test it on the previous version of 4coder too. But when I did this just now, what happened was this said, oh, we can't rename the file, the temporary file or whatever, you can't save the file, blah, 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 blah. But as soon as that happened, 4coder hit an assert in its file track worker thread. So let's see what happened. Okay, Scratch having plenty of space in it still. Began a temporary here. We pushed on enough space for that buffer. We came here, and we're trying to get the file name of this dir handle here for that buffer, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so perhaps it didn't like the file handle? I'm not sure what crashed exactly. Not sure what crashed. The file handle. Wait, path 16 is null. There's a problem. But why? Was Scratch too full? It's kind of what it seems like. One 31072 minus 65670. Okay. One 31072 minus 65607. Yeah, so that only has that much memory, and then 32 times 2. Just a little bit too big. Okay. Alright, so we just need to increase the size of the shared vars arena, I guess, for now. And you can go away. Alright. Nope. There we go. Yeah, that's not going to cut it. So 32K. So if I multiply this by 2, the problem is there's no way to know how many stages it could be in. Okay, so I think the right thing to do is actually going to be to separate this arena out, because even if I get it right, the other thing I haven't actually done is fully like mutex off that shared variable arena, so it's totally possible that two different threads could raise condition on it right now that I think about it a little bit more carefully. So we're going to come up here and say so let's see, this one here, that needs about 64K max. Okay, there we go. So the advantage to doing that maneuver there is that now I can separately set its size and also there's no raise condition with the main scratch from the shared vars. So make part, that's right, because we're still calling those parts. .32 is supposed to be able to store any file, but sometimes we need to store at least 2 full files, plus then we need a little bit more space. Now that one filled with 128, but I think it already had shit pushed onto it when we got to it. So we're going to see if this works. And system memory allocate scratch size. Uh-oh. So my live version of 4coder isn't even stable right now, which is bad news, but let's just build this way. Okay, fix the font size, got it. Okay, let's do this again. So, try to build. Skip to error. Fix type mismatch. Yeah, I do have a slightly, it's not extremely high DPI monitor here, but it's higher than the resolution that I'm broadcasting. Okay, so now this builds. We're going to run it. Okay. $32K times 2 is 64K. There's supposed to be 128K sitting in here, so why is that a problem? I don't understand the problem. You know what I mean? Okay, so there's definitely enough space this time, so why did we not allocate it? So this can push up to 2 files of length here, plus a little bit more. This can push up to 2 files of length here, exactly. Oh, this is still using the same shared vars for one thing. So it's still got all the race condition problems I was complaining about. How did I miss that? Okay. Ooh, okay, so that's a little bit trickier than I realized. So the problem here actually is that all of my UTF-8 wrappers for Windows calls implicitly use the shared vars scratch, but now we're running from a different thread that when it calls that wants it to use a different scratch arena, and there's no way to specify that from out here that that's what we have going on. So we're going to have to refactor all of my UTF-8 wrappers to take the arena in as an explicit parameter. So buckle up, we've got a real task. Whoops, that was 15. Hopefully 15 is big enough because I don't want to launch it again. And what file was this in? Win32 at UTF-8. Okay. So first things first, we're going to make one of these. And then for each of these, we're going to just put in who the scratch is supposed to be from up top. From up top. Scratch. Next. Scratch. Next. Scratch. Next. Later, Dave. Thanks for coming and hanging out. Ugh, lame. 4coder's too crashy. Do not ship. Alright, so, now we just want everyone who already existed to just call these UTF-8 wrappers with the shared scratch. Seems to be every time I do a second build, 4coder crashes. Gonna have to debug that next. Ah, shoot, the font. Sorry. If it wasn't crashing all the time. Whatever that is, that's new, because I haven't had crashes in weeks, and then I just started making changes yesterday, and all of a sudden it crashes on builds. It's gotta be at the file change thing. Seems like it's gotta be. Alright, so here we're just spamming this one thing out to everybody so that they all have the choice to choose, and they can all use their choice to choose the thing they always had. Okay, so this here is under file track, right? So this is where I want to stop using that and start using the file track scratch. Come on. Okay, so Okay. Oh my god, okay. Yeah, it has been a while since I last streamed. Okay, so what's the situation we have now? We have all of these covered, yes or no? Doubter asks, have you rewritten virtual whitespaces? Could it be used as a library outside of 4coder for indenting things? Not in the current engine. The current engine is the same as it was before. Like when I ship 4029 in the next few days, that'll be the same virtual white system as I've been shipping since like 4013 or whatever was the first one to have virtual whitespace. So it hasn't changed substantially in that way, nor has it become library-like. I do have an in-development library-like version of the buffer translation stuff, which includes the layout section of that. Basically, buffer translation I take as meaning everything from the byte stream to the different branches of rendering and like cursor hinting. And that won't become a library for a while because I'm going to spend a lot of time working out things about that before it goes out in any kind of library-like way. I am curious what you think a virtual whitespace library would mean, though. Like, if you think a virtual whitespace library would mean like auto-formatting the code, that's not what that would mean. That you could just pull the you could just copy the auto indenter that 4coder has for text level stuff and strip out all the 4coder API stuff and just connect it up to your own file stream. Okay, so pretty sure all these UTF-8 things have one of these, and the only ones that have file track scratch are those two. Add listener. I guess add listener should also use file track scratch. I didn't finish that to do. I guess I should do that before too long. How would that work? Oh, I just need to push a begin tracking instruction? Oh, that's easy. We'll take care of that next. Okay. So I think that's most of everything. I'm going to go and check it all again in this editor real quick. So, Win32.4 at CVP. Okay. This should definitely not be calling the shared vars. Add listener shouldn't be using shared vars either, so those two need to change still. And I think those are the only two. No. So Doubter, that is how the current one is structured, and it's a nightmare. So Doubter is saying he imagines you could implement the virtual whitespace as a thing that you provide it with some input string, some input text or whatever, and like some sort of statically sized state thing that you can reuse, so that it's sort of, you can keep feeding a little bit more, and using the state to keep track of the state as you're going, kind of like a finite state machine type thing, and that it will just like emit to you every time there's a new like line wrap or something, and that's how mine currently works. The reason that that doesn't work out super nicely is just like feeding in this string of characters, and then like as you're feeding in a chunk of characters, it outputs one number at a time back to you, or it outputs the array of here are the wraps for the current chunk, and here updates the state so that it can take in another string. Is that doesn't make the input and the output separable enough. Like, I'm not sure how to describe this. Like, you want more separation than that. Like, the input to the code flower can't really be a UTF-8 encoded string, because then what you're going to have to do is decode the UTF-8 into Unicode, decode Unicode sequences into like token, some kind of lightly tokenized thing like whitespace delimited or something, to find wrapping points, measure each of those words by looking through a font system to turn each like whitespace delimited word into a length and an X position or something like this, and then finally you're going to have to like decide at which words you're going to start new lines and what the X value of the word should be, and that part is the wraps. The problem with trying to just make an API that's like feed in some input and output some state and a state and output some more indentations, I found that there's just too many different cases. Like when you input a string, it might need to say um, it might need to say something like oh, okay. So you've input a like a chunk of text, and let's suppose you're in the easy case where we don't need to deal with all the stuff I just imagined. Everything's monospaced, ASCII as you just said, and even then it can still get weird because you can say we also need to parameterize this on the width that we're wrapping at, and so when the wrapping point like hits, like if our line hits the wrapping point and the next word needs to go down and we need to pick an indentation for that word, what you don't have in the sort of output stream that you need is, or with just that, what you also need is you need to actually know which things are wraps and which things are non-wraps. It might not be clear why you need that, but you need to know, like, hey, this one here was not a wrap and this one was, because you have to be able to support you have to be able to support arbitrary, like, coordinate systems, which means you need to be able to, when the compiler says on line 100, column 20, there's an error, you don't want it to get confused by the fact that you're wrapping lines and not knowing what line 100 means. So you really need so many different types of outputs that you end up outputting these like complex state codes of, and it's just no good. Later, Mex Dave. Okay, so only problem left was I had a few more shared vars occurrences right here. This should be file track scratch. So just to wrap up what I was saying, Doubter, someday I will like have finished the research and can completely and precisely and clearly state what the problem is, but I've spent some time with the kind of thing you're saying, and all I can say is it turns out not to be that straightforward. The API can't. If the API, the right way to phrase these things is always hard because usually any API that you can imagine can wrap any particular implementation. It's just sometimes a really bad idea to wrap a certain implementation or in a certain API because they mismatch so hard that you end up paying a lot of cost for the mismatch. And I think that's one of these cases here, which is that the implementation is so far away from the API you're imagining that the mismatch between the two makes it really untenable to use that API. It turns out to be better to use a sort of all-in-one system that parses some kind of high-level data that's not the input stream. Okay. That begins attempt, that pushes a string copy on there, and then we push that on there. So dir name string. Okay, I think that this should be enough. So let me build it one more time. Alright, this is hopefully the end of it. Hopefully we've got this working now. So let's take the VBox test. Let's open all code recursive. There we go. And now we're going to try that one more time. And there we go. Okay, so that part is working. I can't repro the part where everything gets like inappropriately marked as like touched from the VM, so that's as good as I can do for now on that front. No. Okay. Doubter says, I'm still avoiding strings wherever I can, and I was always afraid of touching UTF-8, so I usually think of only in monospaced ASCII. Yeah, so I think if your entire understanding of text handling is like ASCII monospaced text rendering, basically, that like mental model of it simplifies things drastically. That is the space in which it is possible to make a sort of, there's one input type, one output, like one expected type of output, or one expected like output formatting or something. How like the layout is fixed, right? In that scenario, your layout system basically is capable of one thing. But the nice thing about it is, since you're only supporting monospace ASCII, you never have to go through a complicated font metrics process during layout, and each layout system, and like you only have one string type to ever deal with, which actually means you can do arbitrarily complex layout stuff, because basically the thing that you always, when you have like an algorithm that's like, we have n different types of string inputs, and we have m different types of string layouts, and we also have to interact with this. There's, I don't know, maybe there's only one type of font provider, but it's a fairly complex system, because in order to provide for Unicode code points, for instance, you need like a sparse data structure. So although it's not really like a multiplexing problem where there are multiple algorithms for it, it's a complex thing that is intermixed with everything else, and or at least it's an API over a complex thing. Hopefully the API makes it simple, but you're still calling into something complex, and complex stuff is happening underneath you all the time. So in that scenario, it starts to look like, how could I ever support UTF-8, UTF-16, ASCII, and like wrapped lines, unwrapped lines, and virtual whitespace wrapped lines, and virtual whitespace unwrapped lines, all while also doing proportional fonts. And it turns out that once you're forced into that position, it's kind of enlightening in terms of the way it forces you to think about the simpler version of the problem. When you have that version of the problem, you have n times m different algorithms to write, and the complexity of that is n times m times the complexity of one of these algorithms, which the complexity of one of these algorithms is some kind of formula related to the font metric system and the relative complexity of the particular string input type and the layout output type, right? On the other hand, when you only have one string input type and no font metrics, all of a sudden all you have are the m different layout algorithms, and the problem looks a lot simpler. But being forced in the position where you have to do the n by m thing with a complexing f factor actually forces you to like I don't know, just think about composability and data transforms very carefully in a way that I think was very useful for my programming education. I guess that's the point I'm trying to get to. Okay, so we've got this first bug fixed, so I'm done with the virtual machine for now. I have to get in touch with the person who has the bug and see if that new build helps them. I'm going to take a quick break. I will be back in not too long to get another round of things done. I have a couple of ideas based on things we just encountered that I either did or didn't talk about when I encountered them. And so I'll be back in just a bit to discuss more stuff and to fix more bugs. See you in a bit.